Hello everyone, my name is Victor. I am the Occult Technician, and this is Mind War, Season 6, Episode 4. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/Mind War. Now back to the show. Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, let's jump back into the analysis and assessment of the Gateway process by Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell. This is that report that was, you see it all over the internet. People are talking about it. They say that this is the CIA-related report to the Gateway experience tapes. Again, we've kind of debunked that. We know that this report was created by the Department of Defense, and it was only authorized for release by the CIA. Again, a lot of what we see when it comes to the Gateway experience tapes online, we see that it's always associated with the CIA. And I think in some ways, they attach themselves, that three-letter agency, they attach themselves to everything. Every conspiracy, every story, it seems like they're constantly involved in everything somehow. But I don't believe they truly are. I believe that's just part of the lore, the myth of them. And it's really kind of an ingenious thing, right? You make these myths up that you are involved in everything, and now you look to be much more powerful than you truly are. But that is well beyond what we're trying to deal with here today. From this report, we're going to start on section number 3, titled Transcendental Meditation. It says here, on the other hand, transcendental meditation works in a distinctively different fashion. In this technique, intense and protracted single-minded concentration on the process of drawing energy up the spinal cord ultimately results in what appears to be a creation of acoustical standing waves in the cerebral ventricles, which are then conducted to the gray matter in the cerebral cortex on the right side of the brain. Okay. So transcendental meditation, we are drawing energy up the spinal cord and disseminating it through the brain. So what is he talking about here? Again, he used a lot of scientific terms here, but we're talking about, and what we equate it to is creating a resonant energy balloon, breathing in through our nose. As we do, we're visualizing bright, white, clean, healing, refreshing energy spiraling up through our feet. As it goes upwards, it's refilling each one of our chakras, right? Ultimately, we hold that energy in our head, allow it to disseminate, and then as we exhale, that energy flows from the top of our head like a fountain and flows down around us, creating our resonant energy balloon. That's what the author of this report just said in a very technical manner. Okay? So again, this is the scientific explanation of what we're doing when we create our resonant energy balloon. And it goes on to say this: as a result, according to Bentov, again, remember Bentov was the Israeli-American biomedical engineer that Lieutenant Colonel McDonnell worked with on creating this report. It says, according to Bentov, these waves will stimulate and eventually polarize the cortex in such a way that it will tend to conduct a signal along the homunculus, starting from the toes and on up. Okay, so again, we're stimulating our mind. We do it through this work. Not only are you stimulating your mind with this breath work, basically is all it is. It's breath and visualization, okay? So that breath work, you stimulate the mind and the body because we're feeling that energy as it swirls upwards. Now, the Bentov biomedical model, as described in the book by Lee Sanella, entitled Kundalini Psychosis or Transcendence. Okay, we're going to stop there. Okay. So, Bentov, the biomedical engineer, has created a biomedical model, and that model is described in a book by an author named Lee Sanella, which is titled Kundalini Psychosis or Transcendence. We've talked about the Kundalini before a little bit. Let's see if we talk about it more here. In that book, he states that the standing acoustical waves are the result of the altered rhythm of heart sounds from heart sounds which are occasioned by prolonged practice of meditation, in which set up sympathetic vibrations in the walls of the fluid-filled cavities, which comprise the third and lateral ventrices of the brain. In addition, according to Bentov, the states of bliss described by those whose Kundalini symptoms have completed the full loop along the hemispheres may be explained as the self-stimulation of the pleasure centers of the brain caused by the circulation of a current along the sensory cortex. Whew, okay. So, again, I don't know how this works for the ladies. It might. I'm not a lady. I don't quite know. But we're talking here about the Kundalini process, okay? This is kind of an occultic and esoteric process, but when you break it down biologically and when you break it down scientifically, it's pretty simple. And for men, it goes like this. For men, the goal is to not spill your seed through reproduction or self-manipulation, okay? So we are going to withhold our seed, and basically what you do is the Kundalini process is a lot like the creation of your resonant energy balloon. It's almost the exact same thing, but here's the difference. If you don't practice self-control and you're constantly spilling your seed, there is going to be no fluids that flow upward, refilling your chakras and stimulating your brain. Okay? So basically what happens again for men as we go through the practice of reproduction, you get this massive flow of chemicals, and I'm sure the ladies feel this too, but during the process and during the climax, right, the body creates all of these chemicals that are very euphoric, almost like an opioid. You get pain relief and just stress relief, all of these things, right? All of these chemicals are created and pushed throughout your body, right? In this one giant burst. But then it leaves you drained and empty. And now all the chemicals wear away. And again, now you're drained and exhausted, right? But what happens is if you practice self-control and you're not, spilling your seed daily, those fluids, those chemicals, they continue to be produced all day long. right? And when you listen to the Gateway Experience tapes, especially with the practice of self-control, when you're creating your resonant energy balloon, you are doing Kundalini. You are taking these chemicals, these naturally occurring chemicals that happen within us, that are usually released upon orgasm, instead of releasing them and wasting them, you're keeping them in your body in a closed system, and you're sort of recycling them. As you breathe, as you envision this white, clean, healing energy, these chemicals are flowing upwards in much of the same feeling that sexual release has, but it's on a smaller scale. But with every breath, you're feeling that kind of over and over again. You're feeling the energy flow up to your brain. You're holding it, and then you're releasing it. And you're doing it over and over again. And it's a visual. It's an imaginatory thing. You're imagining this happening. But it's also a physiological event. It's physiologically happening. There are chemicals flowing through your body, re-energizing you, refilling you. And then again, you're kind of recycling them by pouring them down around you, creating your resonant energy balloon. I know this works because I've done it both ways. God, this is embarrassing to talk about, but there are times where I've done the tapes after being practicing self-control and not spilling my seed for weeks at a time. And then you listen to the tapes, and the experience, again, is 10 times greater than the times where I have not had self-control and listened to the tapes in a very empty state of being, physically just empty of all of these chemicals that would flow through my mind, right? A huge difference. So again, this is part of the overall system. Okay. The psilocybin enhancements, the THC enhancements, the Gateway Experience tapes, Kundalini, the stare. We'll learn about that later. Hypnosis, hypnotic music. We're going to learn about that later in the spiritual side. Using black mirrors, all of that, the tarot cards. All of these things come together. Kundalini on his own can only get you so far. The Gateway Experience tapes on their own can only get you so far. Psilocybin on its own, you'll have a fun night and you'll laugh and you'll have some emotions, but they'll all just be spilled on the floor like the seed if you're wasting it, right? Instead, we're going to bring all of these things together. We're going to have self-control, and we're going to focus all of this energy. And damn, I wish I learned this when I was a young man full of piss and vinegar, because now I'm an old man and all of this is so much more difficult to do. But man, I wish I knew this when I was a teenager, my 20s, my 30s. The idea of being able to do this whole process as a young man would have just increased everything that you feel during this process by 1,000. I guarantee it would have just been that much more amazing. And I'm doing everything I can to stay healthy in order to make sure things continue to work properly. So, again, this is in this section, Transcendental Meditation, we're understanding not only is it meditation, but the importance of adding Kundalini into our process. Again, for the guys, ladies, if you're out there, I don't know what Kundalini means to you. I would love to hear your description. So Bentov also notes that most of the described symptoms start on the left side of the body, means that it is mostly a development occurring in the right hemisphere, although normally a period of meditation involving intense concentration and practice for 5 years or some is required to bring up the Kundalini. Okay. Again, control yourself. Don't spill your seed. listen to the Gateway Experience tapes, and learn the very basic of creating your resonant energy balloon, that's Kundalini. That's it. That's the practice. If you've tried Kundalini in the past and you don't understand how it works, you've read books, you've looked at the pictures, you've seen a million other videos, your resonant energy balloon, the tool, the practice, the technique of creating your resonant energy balloon, if you do that in conjunction without spilling your seed and controlling yourself, that's Kundalini, okay? Bentov states that exposure to mechanical or acoustical vibrations in the range of 4 to 7 hertz, cycles per second, for protracted periods may achieve the same effect. Bentov cites as an example, repeated riding in a car whose suspension and seat combination produce the range of vibrations, or being exposed for long periods of time to these frequencies caused, for instance, by an air conditioning duct. He also notes that the cumulative effect of these vibrations may be able to trigger a spontaneous physio-kundalini sequence in susceptible people who have particularly sensitive nervous systems. What he's talking about, ladies, is sitting down on the dryer as it goes through the drying cycle, right? We've all seen that joke before, okay? Basically, he's saying that for the untrained and the uninitiated, any type of kind of, vibrating seat or whatever, he's talking about being in a car that's kind of vibrating on the road or whatever it is, can bring about these Kundalini effects. Again, it's just nature. It's the human body in its natural form doing its natural techniques, right? I mean, that's all we're talking about here. And just not coming to full release, not finishing, carrying it on day after day, holding on to that excited energy and not wasting it, right? All sorts of different techniques can be used to bring about that Kundalini effect, okay? And again, it is a big part in what we do. It doesn't have to be there. I've still had amazing experiences, even though, again, embarrassingly, when I've not been under much self-control, you still get amazing experiences. But when you do control yourself and you, can withhold, it gets even more intense. It's just that much better. So word to the wise, especially for the men out there. All right, let's go to our next section, which is biofeedback. The third consciousness altering methodology, which will be briefly described as biofeedback. Biofeedback is somewhat unique in that it actually employs the self-cognitive powers of the left hemisphere to gain access to such areas of the right brain as the lower cerebral, motor and sensory cortices, and assorted pain or pleasure centers. Again, so the work that we do by staying conscious in our left brain, while the right brain controls the body and tells it to fall asleep. Once the body is asleep, but the left brain is still wide awake, your conscious is still awake while the body is asleep, now we're able to then explore the senses that come in through the right side of the brain, right? We're able to explore the right side of the brain, that animal side of the brain, the side of our brain that in our physiology and our human nature that hasn't changed since the beginning of mankind, right? That's where the animal instincts are. That's where our connection to our ancestors is. The right side of our brain is where we met the mentor, that natural instinct inside of us that was passed down from generation to generation, the soul of the living body, right? Not our spirit, not our soul, not our metaphysical soul, the individual soul that is going to die and go to heaven or wherever you want to go afterwards. We're talking about that spirit that is connected through the flesh, right? We're able to access that and explore it and meet them. Who are they? Who's the mentor? Okay. Instead of suppressing the left hemisphere as is done in hypnosis, or largely bypassing and ignoring it as is done in transcendental meditation, biofeedback teaches the left hemisphere first to visualize the desired result and then to recognize the feelings associated with the experience of successful right hemisphere access to the specific lower cerebral cortex, pain or pleasure, or other areas in the manner needed to produce the desired results. Again, here he's saying that hypnosis and transcendental meditation, you're less conscious for, right? If someone else hypnotizes you, you may not be conscious to what's going on. Or if you're doing transcendental meditation, this idea that meditation is supposed to be clear your mind and not think of anything. I don't like that. I think that's the wrong way. That's what I love about the Gateway Experience tapes, is that it's guided meditation. Monroe is walking you through all sorts of different activities and teaching us techniques and tools that we can practice over and over again, that strengthen our mind, strengthen our psychic abilities, strengthen our intuition. We're not just going in there, emptying the mind, and then just not doing anything. Right? That doesn't make sense. That's kind of the opposite of what we're trying to do here. Special self-monitoring devices, such as a digital thermometer, are used to inform the left brain when it succeeds in keying the right hemisphere into accessing the appropriate area. Once this is done, the left brain can then repeatedly instruct the right brain to reestablish the pathways involved so as to produce the same external objective measures of success. In this way, the pathways are strengthened and emphasized to such an extent that left brain consciousness is enabled to access appropriate areas of the right brain using a conscious demand mode. Again, the left brain stays conscious while the body falls asleep. That gives us access to the right brain, that more animalistic side of us that we get to understand a little bit more, okay? And in doing so, we're affecting our physical body, right? So how do we do that? The living body map. Healing ourselves with our energy toolbar, our magic wand, standing in front of the mirror. We're there in the sleep dojo. We're in the darkness. We're in the upside out world of Stranger Things. And we visualize before us a mirror. We see the silhouette of ourselves in the mirror. Around our silhouette is glowing light of different colors. Each different color represents a different organ system of the body. And as we go through those different systems in the body, we see where the light is dim and flickering. And when it does, we heal it with our energy toolbar. And in doing so, we are visualizing our physical body healing. We are accessing that right side of the brain and saying it's time to heal this part of the body. And whether it miraculously heals itself, or like in my scenario, when you do that, the medication you need arrives just days later, right? You're affecting something out there. You're affecting the timeline. You're affecting the universe, whatever it is, but we're visualizing what we need. Okay? That's the important part. And we're getting biofeedback from that. Again, he's saying that basically this example is you could have a thermometer and you could maybe figure out how to make your hands and feet warmer when they're cold. just by thinking about it. Okay. That's kind of the example he's giving here. But we know, again, with that living body map, we're going to heal ourselves. And we do it through what he's talking about here by the right brain staying conscious in demand mode. Or the left brain, sorry. For example, if the subject wishes to increase the circulation in the left leg in order to speed up healing, he may concentrate with his left brain on achieving that result while carefully monitoring the digital thermometer connected to the left leg. When the concentrated effort begins to achieve success, the digital thermometer will register an increase in the temperature of the left leg. At that point, the subject can mentally associate the sensations experienced with the result achieved and can begin to emphasize by memory recall the same process to cause its strengthening by affirmation and repetition. In this way, pain can be blocked, healing can be enhanced, malignant tumors can apparently be suppressed and ultimately destroyed, the body's pleasure centers can be stimulated, and a variety of specific psychological results may be achieved. Again, a whole new study, a whole new area of study could come out of just that sentence. Okay, with what we're doing here in the Gateway Experience tapes, getting into a state of somnambulance where our left brain is conscious and our right brain is asleep, and it allows us to access the right brain and take more control over our physiological, over our body. With practice, it says, pain can be blocked, healing can be enhanced, malignant tumors can be suppressed and ultimately destroyed. That is wild. I would love to see some evidence of that. As I've told you recently in the last few episodes, Mother Mind War is dealing with her health diagnosis of lung cancer, and it's very difficult for our family right now. We're going through a very difficult time. And although I don't know if this would help her, it would still be so amazing to see results of this studied. See people who actively, consciously are working at shrinking their cancer tumors using these techniques. It would be amazing to see a study and to see the results of this. But it also says the body's pleasure centers can be stimulated, again, through that Kundalini process. You are going to have, 3/4 of the same feeling that you would have during reproduction, right? You're going to have a lot of those same feelings. You're just not going to have that final huge release, right? But again, you're going to stimulate those pleasure centers over and over and over again, right? And then it says a variety of specific psychological results may be achieved. That's where dealing with the emotional and mental sides of things. And I'm telling you, the 9 months that we've been working here together through the Gateway program here on the Mind War podcast, my overall emotional state has increased 1,000%. I feel more centered. I feel more in control. I feel happier than I have in so long. I can't even recognize, right? With that being said, it's taken several days, and I thought I should be honest with all of you. It's been taking several days for me to get down here and record this episode. I should have done this a few days ago. But to be honest, again, with the things that my family's dealing with right now, I have been pretty down. I have been feeling pretty depressed. It's been difficult to get down here. I'm so glad I'm here now with all of you, because this is, I've said it before, one of my favorite things. Coming down here, talking to all of you is one of the best things I do in my life. It's therapeutical. It strengthens my creativity. It makes me feel confident in myself. And most importantly, sharing this information with all of you, it makes me feel connected to a community, that like-minded group of individuals, our First Earth Battalion, if you will. So to finish up the biofeedback section here, it says, in addition, biofeedback may be used to greatly accelerate achievement of deep meditative states, particularly for beginners who have no experience in meditative techniques and whose progress in that methodology is enhanced through effective visualization and external objective affirmation. Display of the subject's brainwave pattern on a cathode ray tube has proven to be a laboratory-validated means by which subjects may quickly learn to place themselves in profoundly relaxed states characterized by the sort of quietude and singularity of mental focus associated with advanced meditation. Okay. The sounds and the techniques that are available to us in the Gateway Experience tapes, and the practice that we do, allows us to get into a quietude and singularity of mental focus associated with advanced meditation. No longer do we have to move to the Himalayan mountains and sit on the top of the mountains, Indian style, and meditate for 20 years with a yogi. Okay. That's how maybe Jesus did it. That's how people in the past may have done it. When Robert Monroe first was having the out-of-body experiences, one of his doctors suggested that he do that, but it's not necessary. We have found a way through the Gateway Experience tapes to gain access to the state of advanced meditation through our practice, through the use of the tapes. And that's awesome. Okay? It's not fast food. It's not a weekend seminar. You cannot heal yourself with a pill. It still takes a ton of work. We've been at this for 9 months. Okay? We still have months to go. This takes a lot of work. But guess what? We've said it before. It's for you and you alone. You're not doing this work because you're being paid by an employer. Or at least I don't think you are. You're not doing this work because you're forced to do it by religion or something like that. There's no societal or cultural things that are forcing you to do this. In fact, what we saw in the last episode is that society and culture and some of those, influencers in our lives today, they're telling us not to do this type of stuff. Again, they don't want you to know these things. The organizations, corporations, and institutions that pollute your mind, poison your body, and corrupt your soul, they don't want you waking up. They don't want you healing yourself simply by thinking about it, right? They don't want you to improve your life. They want you under their thumb because that's how they control you. They control you through your suffering. They get you addicted to their food and their alcohol. And then when you start to feel sick because you tried to not eat that poisonous food or drink the poisonous alcohol, and you start having symptoms from the withdrawal, they say, well, here, take these drugs. They'll make you feel better, right? They're constantly trying to keep you in a cycle of control. They do not want us breaking free, and that's what we do here in the Mind War. All right, so that was section 3, Transcendental Meditation, and section 4, Biofeedback, from Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process by Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell. That report that you see online, talked about all the time as some type of CIA gateway experience related report. But again, we know that this report was created by the Department of Defense and just authorized for declassification by the CIA. So we're going to be doing a deep dive into Wave 7 Voyager Tape 4, Intro to Focus 27, after a word from our sponsor. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. All right, welcome back, folks. Let's do a deep dive into Wave 7 Voyager Tape 4, Intro to Focus 27. Okay, so Wave 7 Tape 4, very closely related to Wave 7 Tape 3, where we were introduced to Focus 25. Now we're going to move to Focus 27. And there's a very interesting connection between the two tapes, and we're going to put that together right now. It says the purpose of this exercise is to introduce you to Focus 27, the reception center between physical lives. Move into your preparatory process. Move to Focus 21, how we know. They walk us into Focus 25, the belief system territories. Okay, so again, Monroe is guiding us. Well, this is A.J. Honeycutt, but again, this is all built upon Monroe's study and his work, and he is guiding us now into Focus 27, and he's introducing us to the reception center. So remember when we were reading through Monroe's final book, he talked about how when you're on the interstate, you can get off to any religion, right? If you want to go to heaven or if you want to go to hell, whatever, those options are available to you. And you can get off those off-ramps from the interstate as you leave the body. You can go to those. And you can live in the heaven that is described to us as clouds and music and all that stuff, right? But Monroe said that when he got to that heaven, and it was filled with the feelings of love and warmth and the clouds and the music, and he's floating around and it feels amazing, but he said over time he quickly learned that the clouds and the music were both on repeat. They were in a loop. And he said it got very boring very quick and actually turned from heaven to hell. He realized that you could get trapped there. So he pushed on through. He continued down the interstate. And again, he ran into Yahweh, the Lord of the Bible, that said, you have to believe in me. And he said, no, I don't. I'm not afraid of you. And he pushed past that fake God. And when he did, he arrived at the reception center. Basically, he described it as a garden where people who are not religious, it's where they go in order to orient themselves with the fact that they have died and to decide what they're going to do next, okay? And so now we are being introduced in Focus 27 to the reception center. It says, now you will go beyond 25 to Focus 27 as I show you by counting from 25 to 27. As we move, you will remain calm and confident, relaxed and completely alert, knowing that you are still but a visitor, that you will still have much to do in the physical matter reality. Okay. Now, before we get to the reception center, moving into Focus 27, we have to look back in the last episode. So Monroe guides us into Focus 25, that dark water. And we look to the surface of the water and we see the lights of all human belief systems. All the religions are lit up above the water. And so I'm swimming through the dark water and I get to the surface, but I can't put my head above the surface and into our regular atmosphere Instead, it's this thick layer of gel. And I feel like I can't push through it, right? That was the last tape in Focus 25. But now, to get into Focus 27, MZOO teaches us how to push through the gel. This is where it gets really interesting. We've seen this before. When we go into Focus 23, right, and in the Focus 27, it feels much of the same way. So what happens is you run into this gel, this layer, just like MZOO talked about in his books. Okay? He talked about this in his books. That's why we had to do such a deep dive. The tapes alone are great. The books alone are great. But when you combine them together, you get the true nature of what we're trying to do here. So we float through the dark water. We're in Focus 25, and above us is this layer of gel that's the religious belief systems. And now we have to break through it. And here's what happens. You're in your second state body, that plasma body. And like MZOO said before, we then have an out-of-body experience from the second state body. It's like we're having a second out-of-body experience, and we leave the plasma body, that electrified plasma of the second state body, we leave that floating in the water, but now our spirit floats and pushes its way through the gel. And it literally felt like, diving upwards into a pool of jello or something. I could feel my spirit pushing through the layer of gel. And once my spirit made it through the gel, here comes the second state body. That plasma body, it slams down, or not, it lands on top of this gel layer, because we're now into Focus 27, and the spirit body goes back into the second state body, that plasma body, because that's the avatar that we use to move through Focus 27. It's just like we did, I think it was to get into Focus 21, it was that same feeling, right? Where we break through these layers and the second state body comes with us, and then we have out-of-body experiences from there, or we use the second state body as the avatar to explore where are we at. Boom. Mind blown. It's exactly what MZOO talked about in his books. It felt the exact same way. So, let's see here. So from my notes, Focus 27, Wave 7 Tape 4, pushed through the gel layer, past the Abrahamic phase. It was like I had an out-of-body experience leaving the second state body to push through the gel. Once through it, I returned to the second state. Now that we were in Focus 27, we used the second state like an avatar. Okay. So that's where we are. Now, in Focus 27, a part of the light opens. Right before you is the entrance to a place with beautiful green trees, green grass, flowers, shrubs, all carefully placed, a waterfall, stream, blue sky overhead with wonderful round clouds, dark with winding walks. You see benches here and there to sit and think, and much more. Move into the park and Focus 27. This is the reception center, created as a way station, a place to relax, to meet with others, a place that is familiar, not strange, a place where anyone can pause and ask for help and communicate and consult with others. Or you can think clearly and calmly, free of emotional restraints. Yet at this point, you can only visit and help others here because you still have a life, sojourn to complete in physical matter reality. You will be able to hear my voice and act upon what you hear during this visit. Explore this reception center now. Okay. So as he is describing the reception center in the park, I am imagining it, I am visualizing it, and I am seeing it in my mind in front of me. It was difficult, and here's how I describe it. when I was seeing this reception center, this park in front of me, it was like this. It was as if my head was all the way back, but my eyes were looking downward. And so it's a very difficult way to see things. You know, if you put your head all the way back and then look down and now try to walk around, it's very disorienting. So I thought, okay, let me look downward. So I looked down, and it was like I was looking up, and I could only walk around this way. Again, very disorienting visually. You're kind of only seeing part of the scene. It was very difficult. And I said, you know, none of this park is familiar to me, right? It's fine for what it is, but I don't recognize this place. And I think I need to find a place that I recognize. So as a kid, I spent a lot of time playing in this little patch of woods that was behind my parents' house. It's still there today. Spent so much time back there playing as a kid and as a teenager, building forts, just running around the woods, playing army, stuff like that. And then again, as a teenager, my friend Nathan and my friend Nathan, who passed away from a fentanyl overdose just 3 months before I moved back home. Again, he is the focus of a lot of this work that we're doing here when it comes to contacting people who have passed away. He's the person I've been focusing on. That is, of course, unless the inevitable occurs to Mother Mind War, then we will be helping her. But for the time being, we're going to stay focused on Nathan. And so I thought the best way for me to maybe attract Nathan to what we're doing here is to visit a place that we spent a lot of time at in the woods. And it was easiest for me to visualize this place because it was now a memory. So instead of, you know, creating and visualizing this reception center park that was being described to us for the first time, now I'm just visualizing a memory that I've had a million times. And basically in the woods behind our house, there was a little path that led off where you could walk to like McDonald's and some convenience stores and stuff. And on that trail, just a few feet off the trail was a tree that had fallen down. Perfect place to sit. Nathan and I would go back there and we would, again, as teenagers, we would get an ice cold Slurpee and some candy. We'd get a little bit of weed from our buddy and smoke a joint, and we would just sit there in the warm summer afternoon, just laughing our ass off, sitting in the woods, sitting on that fallen tree. And so that ultimately is where I ended up in this tape, right? It was sitting on that log, one that I've been to a million times. Nathan wasn't there. I was just there by myself. Again, just visualizing this in my imagination. And I knew that was a familiar place, right? So that's what I visualized. And I started to then think about why I'm here and why we're doing this, okay? And so what happened here is, let's see, I finally found the log in the woods Nate and I would sit on. And I realized the disappointment I feel that Nate and Joe and I will never meet again on the street that we were raised, right? We're never going to grow old together. So the street that my parents live on is a cul-de-sac, basically a dead-end street. My parents' house is literally 2 houses away from where Nate's house was, right? His parents still live there. That's where Nate lived most of his life. Even as an adult, he was still living there. That's where he died of his fentanyl overdose. And, it's still there. Like I said, it's, every time I visit my parents, I drive past his parents' house. And directly across the street from Nate's house is Joe's old house, where my friend Joe, again, goes by the name Deog. He's a member of the Judeo-Christian cult, the 12 Tribes. You can find them at 12tribes.org. he lived right across the street from Nate. And the three of us were great friends. And what I realized in this tape, one of the reasons that I've been thinking so much about Nate and so much about Joe is that I am so disappointed that we're not going to be able to kind of grow old together the same way that my parents have done. Because my parents and Nathan's parents are best friends. My parents and Joe's parents were best friends. They don't really talk much anymore. They've kind of all separated, right? But no big deal. But I see the opportunity of what should have been. Living back on that street again, the three of us being able to reconnect and raise our children together, and grow together, and just become old guys together. That's what it should have been, right? But instead, fentanyl addiction took Nate away from all of us, and the 12 tribes have taken Joe away from the rest of the world, right? Again, he's part of this cult now. And during this tape, I just felt a very deep sense of disappointment that this is how things have turned out. And it kind of made me think a little bit about the different ideas of like timelines, right? We hear this theory that, each of us have, infinite different timelines that we could have lived or whatever. And I think about a timeline that would have been perfect. I can visualize it in my mind right now, step by step. That is not the timeline I am currently living, right? But ultimately, despite the heartache, despite the disappointment, I wouldn't give up this timeline for any other timeline that's available to me. The pain, the suffering of life has made me who I am today. The sadness and the sorrow brought me here to all of you. The warrior training that I've been doing through most of my life has given me the strength to push through the disappointment and the sadness and still discover, I think, one of the most important things of my life, what we're doing here, not only in the Gateway Experience program, but what I do through my spirituality and through the art project as a whole. This is one of the most important things I've done in my life. And I realize the importance of it. So ultimately, I wouldn't change timelines. Some of the other ones may have been easier, but this is the one that I'm on right now, and I appreciate it. I cherish it, even with the difficulties. Even with the fact that I'm down here in the Mind War studios all alone. It's freezing freaking cold. It's still worth it. It's still worth all the work. It's still worth all the heartache. Because ultimately, we're doing something awesome here. All of us together. Mind warriors, citizen samurais, guerrilla gurus, and warrior monks. Exploring the gateway together. What more could we ask for, right? So folks, that was Wave 7 Voyager, Tape 4 Intro to Focus 27. We did a little read through of the analysis and assessment of the gateway process. And I think we've had another very successful episode. As always, I appreciate you being here. And remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.